Hello, hello everyone. How are you doing? Happy Monday. This past weekend was 4th of July weekend here in the US, right? So hopefully some of you got to do something exciting, get the chance to get out and connect with nature. What did you do for the 4th of July?
I was actually leading a retreat at a place called Yogaville, which is an ashram in Virginia.
Okay.
And we sang and we practiced yoga and we meditated and it was wonderful.
Well, it could not be any better to be here actually with Sean, who is the director of the Asheville Yoga Center here for Ayurprana. And he's much more than that. And actually, you'll get to know him, you'll get to meet him as we go through this. But he's a devotee of Kirtan. He plays Kirtan. He has a band, the Wild Lotus Band. And he's also a very good, dear friend of all of ours. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and how you got into the yoga world.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Hey, everybody. My name is Sean Johnson. And as Sandy mentioned, one of my main roles here at Ayurprana is I'm the director of the Asheville Yoga Center, and I guide our teacher training programs and kind of curate our programming there. But Sandy also mentioned I have a band, 20 years now, called the Wild Lotus Band, and we tour all around the country and a little bit in Europe, sharing mantra music with folks, and a particular form of yoga called Bhakti Yoga, which is very apropos to our conversation today. It's the yoga of devotion.
There you go.
Yoga of emotion. So I've been, I was called to this path many years ago, really from a state of heartbreak. I was really, I had a relationship that ended very suddenly, and I was heartbroken. And I think sometimes when we're experiencing some adversity or some heartbreak or some grief, it actually, for me, left me in a really open, curious space. I wanted to heal, and I found yoga, and I found bhakti and chanting and meditation, and I feel like I put my heart back together again, like through these practices, and I never have forgotten that, you know, and I love creating containers for other people that might be experiencing some sort of adversity to really find their way through these practices. So it means a lot to me, and I'm so grateful to be here to have this conversation with you today, Sandy, and to be with y'all today.
I am really grateful to have you here. Honestly, I could not think of a better person to have chosen for this one, because you, Sean, just the way that you lead your practice and the way that you live your life is a great example for all of us. So I cannot wait to share that with everyone. So thank you so much for joining. We are talking to Sean Johnson today. Most of you are from our SoHum family. Like, you follow our SoHum emails. You have either been to SoHum or are planning on coming to SoHum, as well as some of you may be from our Asheville Yoga Center. You go there for your daily practice. Maybe you have met Sean. But if you haven't and you happen to be in town, please do stop at the Asheville Yoga Center. The atmosphere, the people, the teachers is just really, really incredible. So without any further ado, let's get started here. We're talking about devotion in motion today. So if you can just put in the chat where you're dialing from. That's always a good place to start. We love seeing where all of you are dialing from. I know some of you may be from overseas, some of you may be here locally. Whatever you're dialing from, we welcome you, and we're really grateful that you're here. And while you go ahead and do that, I see here Siler City, North Carolina. Welcome to see someone here from North Carolina. Santos, Brazil. Hello, I am from the Netherlands. Sylvia, thank you for joining. It must be getting late there. Raleigh. Beautiful. The UK, okay, love it. Thank you so much. Las Cruces, New Mexico, Nova Scotia, Canada, France. Incredible. France, Boston, Philadelphia. Oh my goodness. We are so blessed to have this beautiful energy from all over the world. These are the moments where we connect collectively, so thank you. So let's get started. I am Sandy. I am your Ayurvedic Ambassador at SoHum Mountain Healing Resort. We do these webinars on a monthly basis rather, not weekly. And the whole purpose is just to bring content to you that is added value to your daily life. And in this instance, we're going to be talking about devotion in motion. And what does that mean, right? Like, what is devotion in motion? And when I started thinking about this topic, I thought about how do we handle ourselves on a day-to-day basis? And that includes everything, the way that we eat, the way that we wake up in the morning, the way we brush your teeth. Most of the times when we think about motion, perhaps we're thinking about a practice, which there's nothing wrong with it, right? But it's more so like, did I do my yoga practice or did I do my meditation practice? In this case, I want to approach it in a holistic way so we all can start thinking about how do we go about our days and how can we make our days a little bit more intentional, just a little bit more every single day. So that's the whole purpose of this webinar today, just to talk about that. So what does devotion mean to you?
Well, I think for me it's about trying to remember as much as possible from when I wake up through when I go to bed, and maybe even when I'm sleeping, like what I'm dedicated to, what I want to invest my life force, my prana into. And I think that can show up in really ordinary ways, and then also at times extraordinary, ways as well. Yeah. And so it's really like, the other thing I was thinking about when we were preparing for this is the relationship between the word motion and emotion. And I think that's like when there's a feeling, when we're feeling what we're doing in our lives with, in Bhakti Yoga would be called bhav, like the bhava, like this feeling of devotion, when we're pouring our heart into something, it makes all the difference in the world. And there's another phrase that I find really interesting related to motion, is there's an expression, going through the motions, which is this sense of like dully dialing it in, being really numb and just sort of going through the day without a lot of feeling, and connection. But then there's this expression, being moved by something. And it's interesting that the word motion is in both of those, and so for me, devotion is practicing being moved, and moving, like moving feeling, moving my heart, and investing my heart like into what I'm doing as much as possible. And sometimes I'm not able to do that. And but I try to. Yeah. What about you? What does devotion mean for you, Sandy?
I love the fact that you say you try to. Because part of the conversation that I'm hoping that we can have today is that not every day is perfect. And perfect is not even a thing in my mind, right? So the fact that we bring awareness and consciousness to our everyday and try to do our best, to me, that's already a winner. Because it doesn't have to be one way or the other. I don't have to have an expectation for what my day needs to be. However, I do make the intent and the effort and the intentionality of putting my heart and my soul into everything that I do. And I'll give you some examples. When I first met Dr. Ladd, and this was in India during my Panchakarma, I remember it was the first time that I was introduced to Dinacharya, which is your daily practice. And ideally, some of you could or maybe are planning on having a daily practice. And that daily practice could have multiple things that happen from the time that you wake up. So perhaps you wake up and you take your hands like this, and then you create some energy. And as you create the energy, perhaps you put it on your eyes, just to wake up on your face, on your shoulders, whatever that may be. That's the daily practice, right? But I had never really heard of it until I heard Dr. Ladd saying, oh, Dinacharya, and you have a sequence of things that you can do. Now, reality is that sometimes life may kick in and you wake up in the morning and you turn the alarm clock off, and then you didn't get a chance to do your thing. So then I don't want you to feel like a failure. I don't want you to feel like, oh, I didn't do it today. That's okay. But the intentionality, the remembering, the bringing us back home of, okay, I didn't do it today. It's okay. I'll remember again tomorrow, and I'll bring that. That's what, to me, that devotion is. When we bring intentionality, consciousness into our everyday, and brushing our teeth is a practice. You know, it's something that we do every day. So how can I brush my teeth with more intentionality, where I'm not just flying through the emotions, like you said, like going quickly, oh, I have to go get it, but actually feel it, you know? And then perhaps notice, wow, the water temperature that it feels in my mouth. It's like all these little details that can become a wow.
Absolutely.
In your day, if you just begin to pay attention.
That's right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the thing that I often remind myself about is quality over quantity when it comes to daily practice.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I think New Year's resolutions is a good example, where we have this like opportunity to like turn the year over and this new, and we think about, well, it's a whole new time, a new era. And I think a lot of us, myself included, tend to be really ambitious. You know, I'm gonna run 10 miles a day, you know, every day.
I'm guilty of that too. Who else? Raise your hand.
And then, you know, 5 days in. And then, so I think we defeat ourselves oftentimes by setting the bar really unrealistically high. And I think it's better to, you know, there's that practice of mindfulness, you know, but like heartfulness, you know, as well as mindfulness. Better to be heartful and mindful for a few minutes than to be dull and numb for a few hours, you know. And I think that it's also really setting achievable goals for ourselves to reach a point where we want to do it again the next day because we miss it so much, you know. I think that's really a wonderful way to go about it. So I think sometimes rather than setting the bar really high and trying to really do something that is really unrealistic to be able to stay consistent with, just to say, oh, I'm going to do this, you know, every morning with my full 100%, you know, of my awareness and devotion, then, you know, 3 hours of yoga practices and cleansing practices in the morning. If you have the time to do that and it's realistic to do that, wonderful.
That's right.
But I think many of us, householders living, have responsibilities, you know, things to take care of. It's better just to focus on the quality rather than the quantity.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And let's do a pulse check here with all of you. How about you type there? It could be a sentence, it could be a word. What does devotion mean to you? So that way we can have this shared collaborative effort of really finding what devotion means to each of us, because it could be something different for you than what it could be for me, right? Like for some people, devotion may be really having that religious practice, which is okay. For others, maybe having the physical practice. For others, maybe the combination of it all. So connection, thank you, Karen. So connection to yourself, I'm guessing, and connection to others, honoring truth and integrity, heart, soul, and actions. Pacha, that is beautiful. Absolutely. And again, there is no right or wrong. There is no better or worse. Devotion can mean different things to different people. Focus. Yeah, that's beautiful. Wonderful.
You know, something that comes to mind for me, Sandy, is I think that, like, I'm a father of a 7-year-old boy, and I'm devoted, like, to being a father and devoted to him. And I think that when we have that clear devotion for something or someone, there are times that are difficult. You know, it's difficult. There's wonderful times to play and be engaging and experience him. But there's other times where it's more difficult. And I think that devotion, because I'm devoted to him as a father, I remember that at the difficult times, and it helps me to get through.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah.
stay with it and not give up, you know,
Yeah.
on that in a sense. I would never consider it because I'm devoted. You know, I think it's a really good example. I think devotion is a power that allows for us to, it's a fuel, you know, in a sense to, no matter what, we're devoted to that.
That's right. That's right. And I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because in reality, in the everyday life, right, many times we can get distracted, or we can forget, or we can face those difficulties in life. It's a reality, right? It could be something that is happening, you know, at the country level. It could be happening at the family circle level. It could be happening internally, just within you. But we have these things that happen to us. But if we then take that as, you know, as Tony Robbins says, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And whatever that may be happening, if we can take it and look at it with the lens of devotion, like, okay, this may not feel very comfortable right now. This actually, in fact, it feels really painful. It could be a really difficult moment in life. But what is there for me? What do I need to learn from that? Or how can I take that and turn it into that devotion in motion, into something that is beautifully being taught to me through pain and then acceptance, right? So that is the purpose of this conversation, is how can we in our minds begin to look at not the duality of life as negative and positive, a black or white, but just realizing there is a whole rainbow of colors in between. And if we're just able to tap into that, if we're able to see the beauty on the difficult moments, that is devotion, right? That is devotion towards ourselves, towards our actions, and again, there is no right or wrong. That's just the way that I perceive it, or the way that I'd like to share with you today. And perhaps that little nugget, you'll take it with you and be like, you know what? Yes, I can take the difficult moments and see it with grace, and see it still with the heart and the love, even though if I'm not enjoying it, right?
Absolutely.
So I do appreciate you bringing that point, because that's something that is actually touched me a lot lately, as you know, in my personal life. And in just having that resilience, that grace that comes from the heart. You mentioned another thing here, that it was devotion through the motion and devotion through the heart. And Bhakti is that devotion through the heart. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how do we show devotion, or how do we experience? Before we show it, how do we experience it?
Sure.
Through the heart.
Well, bhakti is a Sanskrit word that translates as devotion. Other words that it's connected with: belonging, faith, love. And it's the path of the heart. And it really focuses on a relationship that we have with some form of the divine that speaks to our heart, and dedicating our words and our actions and our breath and our lives to, in service, you know, of that. And so most of Bhakti's practices are art forms, like singing and storytelling and poetry, the making of food with love and care and service, the eating of food. For the cooks, the people that don't cook out there, the eating of food that's been made with love is a form of bhakti practice. And the invitation is to pour like our devotion and our emotion and our feeling into the making of that. And it's by its nature and a very inclusive, accessible form of yoga that you don't have to necessarily call yourself an artist or a musician to sing or to draw or to write a poem or to do whatever you wish to do to make that offering, you know, of your heart, you know, what you're feeling.
It's pure love.
It's pure love. And also, even like when we feel depressed or separate or cynical, instead of being petrified and paralyzed by those more shadowy emotions, pouring that into a song, you know, or a poem, or a story, or a conversation, you know, with a friend. And move, like we're talking about motion, moving it, moving the energy like through, so devotion as a vehicle, in a sense, to move feeling, to move emotions. And like all art, there's the potential to transmit something to those who experience that art, so it touches their hearts, you know, as well.
So you get to touch others through your own touching of your heart.
That's right.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So I want you all to think about what Sean just said and think through, what are some of the things that you're facing perhaps right now that are making you feel a little bit disconnected? Let's see if we can tap into that. So think about whether it is something that is happening, you know, with the socioeconomic, you know, status of the state, the country, whether it is something that it may be happening at home. Try to connect with that in your heart. See if you can, if you need to close your eyes, please do. Just go into that heart center and see if you can connect and feel, what are you feeling? Are you feeling disconnected? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling perhaps that you don't have that devotion or that sense of happiness of being alive? Whatever that may be, because a lot of those things, we feel them. They're part of our emotions. And only is that we realize that we are actually going through that we're feeling that, and we face it. That doesn't mean they're shadows. They're part of our emotions. You know, yes, some of them may have a little bit of a darker side than others, but if we take it away from that duality once again and welcome it with love and just take that time, I want you to feel it more so than thinking through it, and see where you're at. And if you feel like typing a word, please do so. That way you can let us know where you're at. And I want you to know that you're in a safe space. We're holding a safe container here for you. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I can tell you, I know the past few weeks for me personally have been very difficult. And this topic in particular resonated so much with me because it's an opportunity, as Sean said, to even connect with a friend and allow that energy to move. So hopefully you're feeling something moving within you. What happens?
If you're open to it,
yeah,
I'd like to share a little poem.
Please do.
That might help with this inquiry.
Yeah.
This is a poem by Jalaluddin Rumi, the great 13th century Sufi mystic, and translated by Coleman Barks, and it's called The Guest House. So feel free to take it into your heart. This being human is a guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if a crowd of sorrows comes and violently sweeps your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them, greet them. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. be grateful to whoever comes, for each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Be grateful to whoever comes, for each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So you might want to write in the chat some of the guests that have been visiting your house, the house of your consciousness lately. You might want to share just who you're welcoming into the house, whether it's the dark thought, the shame, the joy, whatever it is. Please feel free to share.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's such a wonderful visual, you know, to put it connected with the emotion. I happened to close my eyes and I could actually see like the different visitors into the house as you were talking, and being able to connect with that. You know, it's like taking the time, again, a simple conversation with a friend, or just having a community where you can actually find like-minded people that can help you navigate through difficult times. It's a beautiful thing. It's like we're all here to support each other. We're all here to be community, and to help the collective rise. And when someone is down, maybe even perceiving, that's also devotion. Like, how can we open our heart to see people also around us that may be in pain, and how we from our place can, from a place of love, compassion, and devotion, bring that heart forward and be connected with others. So there's so many beautiful different aspects of devotion. How you can be devoted to yourself, how can you be devoted to accepting these visitors and not actually pushing them away? How can you be devoted to your surroundings and everyone around you? So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Sandy.
Visitors like worry, anxiety, and fear, thank you, Karen. Yes, they're real. They are absolutely real. They happened. Not doing what I am supposed to be doing. Brindis, I believe I pronounced your name right, and if I didn't, so sorry. I'll tell you a story about the word supposed to. And again, there is no right or wrong, but this actually happened to be also with Dr. Lat one time. And as Sean knows, I am a very type A type of person. And some of you may be type A. If you are, right, raise your hand. But I am a very type A. I'm very focused. Like I know exactly what I'm doing in the process that I'm doing it and how things work. And I just happened to be having a conversation with Dr. Lat where I was going through my panchakarma. And I was the only one in the cohort where I was told that I needed to do 7 days of bastis. And bastis are enemas. So evidently I had a lot of congestion within me that I was the only person I was told I needed to do it for 7 days. Other people needed to do it for 3, other people for 4. As I was going through it, day 1, day 2, nothing was happening. As you can imagine, I mean, you're talking about panchakarma and doing bastis to get the toxins out of the body. And I'm like, nothing is happening. So I went back to Dr. Lat and I'm like, wasn't I supposed to be cleansing all this? And then he said, you're not supposed to. And it took me a moment, which I'm sure is taking you a moment, like, I'm not supposed to, what does that mean? And then he went to say, the moment that you say that something is supposed to be in a certain way, you're setting up expectations. And if those expectations are not met, disappointment becomes alive. So how can we look at life and everything that is happening as it's supposed to be happening, even though if we don't think it's supposed to, right? At that very moment, he said, maybe your intestines just needed to be lubricated. Okay, well, that's a totally turnaround from what I thought it needed to be, right? I was like, okay, this needs to be cleansed. In his mind, maybe this needed to stay in there. So that's just an example of when we think about the word supposed to, or where we think, can we connect with everything in a form of devotion more so as also acceptance? Can we devote ourselves to the acceptance of reality of how life is, as opposed to how it's supposed to be, or how we wanted it to be?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, it reminds me, I wish we had time for me to tell a longer version of the story, but the short version is I was with my band on tour on the West Coast of California, and we'd rented a van, and we were traveling all day, really spaced out. We're driving down the road, and all of a sudden this car comes swerving around us. This guy rolls his window down, and he's screaming, "Your van's on fire. Your van's on fire, pull over." So we pulled over, and sure enough, there's flames coming out of the hood.
Oh, goodness.
So these two guys, just within just 1 minute, had completely emptied all of our gear and instruments out of our van, put the fire out with some water that they had, and we're standing on the side of the road. It's like nighttime, really dazed. And I said, "Thank you so much. Thank you. That was incredible." You know, they said, "Sir, don't thank us. Please do not thank us." I said, "Well," but that was amazing.
I need to thank somebody.
We're so grateful, you know. He says, "It's what we do.
Oh.
We're Marines." He's like, "It's what we do." And I was like, to this day, I use that phrase with my wife, like when things get hard at the house, you know, it's what we do.
Oh,
you know, so it's like what you're talking about, like even if it's not pleasant, you know, or things are, you know, not going well, if you're devoted to something, that's what you do. It's who you are. I have a friend who teaches yoga at the center, Gota, and he says sometimes he wakes up in the morning and he's just groggy and he doesn't really want to get out of bed, and he thinks to himself, "I'm a yogi. What do yogis do? Yoga." So he like pops up out of bed, you know. So it's like he reminded himself of what he's devoted to.
There you go.
So, and Marines are devoted to serving people, and you know that this was a mission that these guys stumbled upon. So I was really moved, you know, by that, and I think that's very much in the spirit, you know, of our conversation.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was. I wasn't expecting for you to say the Marines.
I know.
I was expecting for you to say it was an angel. That just,
right.
I'm an angel for you. But I mean, how many times we come across someone that unknowingly, it really touches us, you know? It's like we all have the capacity of planting a seed in someone else's heart in a given moment. And that seed can bloom to be this beautiful flower or this beautiful tree. It's like never underestimate the capacity and the love that you have within your heart. So this is not only the devotion that we're here to give ourselves, but also with the actions that you have and the way that you present yourself into this world and the things that you do, you know, how you're changing this world. If you're putting out the fire for others without even knowing it. At that time, I'm sure they were like, this is just what we do and no big deal. But for you, it meant the world.
Yes.
It's like taking that appreciation too. So let's talk a little bit about how we go through our everyday life and we just happen to disconnect, right? Like there's times, and it's normal, there's times where we feel like we're more connected, we're doing our practice, we feel like you're at the top of the world, everything is going well, fantastic. Reality is, for most of us, every day doesn't look that well, right? Like there's things that happened. So what are things that can disconnect us, right, from being in touch with our heart? I would say some of those things perhaps could be watching too much news. Right? I'm just going to go through a list of things that come to mind. Feel free to type in there, and I'm going to ask you, Sean, what are the things that disconnect you? So I honestly don't like watching TV or watching the news because I do feel like the amount of news is just pulling me away from connecting. It's not really how I want to spend my time and my energy. Like I rather, when you think about the intake of information, whether it's audio, visual, physical, experiential, it's like whatever that may be, I'd rather be intentional about how I'm using my time. So news is one of them. Another one that perhaps disconnect me is when I don't have a routine. And I just find out that I work well when I do have a routine. When I wake up in the morning, when I do my practice, when I eat intentionally, those things bring that connection. I'll give you an example. Ordering too much from Instacart, I realized it's making me feel disconnected. And I realized that recently. It's convenience, and I was like, oh, let me just order it. It's easy. It gets to my door. But then I realized, like, how many hands does that apple go through before it even gets to me? That's a step, 2, 3, 5, 10 steps away from me being connected to that food that I'm about to put in my mouth. And that food brings prana, and being connected to the prana of the people that actually touch the food. So all those little things may even help you connect or disconnect. What are some of the things that make you feel disconnected?
Mm-hmm. I would say worry, anxiety, about things. And I notice that I have more of a tendency towards those emotions when I haven't gotten enough sleep. I think sleep, is an important, element in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
I've recently been practicing intentionally eating less and just being okay with being a little bit hungry and noticing that there's an emotional or even like a release of stress sometimes when I have an extra plate, of food, in a sense, seconds.
Yeah.
And replacing that with a little more exercise and walking, rather than sitting on my couch at night scrolling, on social media or news or whatever, like going out and taking a walk. I've been doing these nighttime walks and really like appreciating like the quiet. I can hear the animals, in the forest, around me, and the moonlight, up above. And it feels so good to replace something that, again, anything is fine in and of itself. It's just when it's out of moderation, it can become imbalanced, and affect our health. So to replace over scrolling, with just walking, and getting some steps in and enjoying nature has been really a powerful experience. Nice. I think just that sense of day-to-day balance, like knowing that I love to sing, and maybe we'll get a chance to sing in a little bit.
Yes.
But I love to sing, and that feeds it literally like has an impact on our nervous system. And so if I don't do that every day, it affects me. I'm a little off. And when I sing a lot and have the opportunity to really weave that into my life, it's just so energizing. And I'm not saying everybody, that should be the practice for everybody, but I've identified that's my vehicle, and it really nourishes my consciousness and my body. So I think recognizing like the tools that work for us and committing to them, is really, really important. It goes a long way.
And they're tools. That's exactly what they are. They're tools that when we know how to use them, obviously they work towards our advantage and ultimately the advantage of everyone around us as well. Because when we don't get enough sleep, we get grumpy. When we don't get enough food, we get grumpy or whatever. So finding out that balance, right? Like what are the things that make you feel connected? Now, if you want to type on the chat, what are the things that make you feel disconnected? Feel free to do so. We just walk you through a few examples here. And then the idea is going to be to look at those things that makes us feel disconnected and how can we turn them around and make them feel more connected. So for me, I use the example of the news. So what do? I use less screen time. And what I mean with less screen time, that could be TV, that could be phone, that could be whatever, radio, whatever ways those news get to me, right? You use the example of sleep. It's incredibly, incredibly important that you get good sleep, right? So how do you feel more connected to your sleep? How do you prepare yourself to make that sleep time sacred, right? Like making sure that when we go to the room that we're turning the lights off, that we're not with the TV on, and that we are actually taking a few minutes, if we can, before we actually fall asleep, just in complete silence, in darkness. Darkness is not the opposite of light. Darkness is part of light. So being there in complete silence It's almost like it's the chance for us almost to die and be reborn again the moment that we open our eyes. So those are all the little details that we're talking about that we know that only that we talk to a friend too, and we realize how important these little things are, then we may go through life without even noticing. So can we bring that awareness? I see here from Pacha, over scrolling, drum scrolling, and self-isolating in grief. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're going through, Pacha, and grief is something that we need to allow ourselves to feel to the max. And grief can come from the loss of someone that we love. It could be from struggling in a situation. It could be the loss of a job. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. But whatever that may be, just allowing yourself to feel to the fullest. Cry if you need to cry. Scream if you need to scream. There's nothing more beautiful, actually, than going out in nature and then hugging a tree out of the blue. That love, that devotion that you're giving to that tree, Pachamama, Madre Tierra, is giving it all back to you a million times. And you'll feel better. And after that, you look at the blue sky and you'll focus on the beautiful little things in life. That is the purpose of this devotion in motion. It's how can we connect a little bit more, be more intentional every second of our day. In the times that we're disconnected, how can we find a really good friend to reconnect? That is the purpose of having a community like this. Thank you for that heart, I appreciate it, but it's really finding that so we can reconnect, right? Now, let's talk about the things that we can do as a practice, right, to bring us back, okay? So we talked about the things that disconnect us. Now let's talk about the things that can bring us back into that connection. And I can tell you, I have been feeling personally that I have this calling for singing, for instruments. I've never played one instrument in my life. What did I do recently? I signed up for Sean's class. It's like he has this class about kirtan and playing the harmonium. And I said, you know what? I am realizing I'm disconnected from that which will bring me happiness. So how do we do it? Just take action. Karma is not just a bad karma. Karma is action taken, right? So I went ahead and signed up for his class so that I can bring that music and that love into my life. So what is something that you have done recently to bring that spark back into your life?
I'll share that in a moment. I just want to say it goes back to what we're talking about, like quality over quantity. Like it's just what's one little step? You don't have to go to the other side of the world and do a year, 5-year retreat. You know, like what's one little step that can take you, deeper into your devotion, So what would it be for me at the moment? Well, I had an experience of getting food poisoning a few months ago. And I was lying down on a bathroom floor next to a garbage can between throwing up. And obviously the food poisoning didn't have to do with my general overall health. I think no matter how healthy I was, I would have probably gotten that bug. But there was something that came into my consciousness where I was like, Sean, you gotta take better care, of this body, and because I felt so miserable, it just sparked this motivation to just be even more kind, to myself and to really honor this vehicle, this this body. And so I started, that's when I started this more exercise, mindful of my eating, doing some intermittent fasting, along the way. And I have every day, I think my, I have a Fitbit and I do my 10,000 steps.
Nice.
And it's like brushing my teeth.
There you go.
It's the equivalent. That is the way that I'm lubricating, my body and my joints and burning, energy and And a lot of times when I'm walking, I'm incorporating my mantra practice into my walking as well. So I'm chanting like while I'm walking, you know, amidst the nature. And so I've been really enjoying that. That's been a couple of months, you know, now that I started to take those steps, and it feels really, really good. It feels like a really wonderful investment, you know, in my life. And then the thing about devotion is that that feeds my devotion to my son, you know, and my wife, because I'm showing up, you know, more as a more vital person, you know, in their lives. And so I think a lot of times we think that caring for our own wellness and our own body is a selfish thing to do. I think a lot of people struggle with that obstacle, when I think it's important to remember that the healthiest, you know, the most well, you know, and inspired and balanced we can be is going to be a gift for everybody in our life, you know, and in our community. Many people who don't remember that end up burning out, you know, and hitting a wall. And that doesn't serve anyone, much less ourselves.
Yeah. So true. And let's actually keep diving into that, because I think for the majority of the people, including myself, or myself included, is realizing that self-care is not selfish.
That's right, yeah.
It's so true. And I want you to repeat that to yourself. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. Because the moment that, for whatever reason, it could be cultural, it could be the way that we were raised, but for some reason, the moment that we started investing time in ourselves, that meant in society that we were taking that time away from somewhere, someplace else, someone else, that we were not giving it to, that we were supposed to just be giving to something else outside of ourselves. But the reality, to your point, is the moment that we stop giving to ourselves, we're stop giving to everyone else. So
that's right.
Can we take that realization and just say, doing self-care is not selfish. And I am also here to be devoted to myself, to be devoted to my mind, my body, and my soul. In whatever that way may manifest for you, it's just having that love and dedication and devotion to this one vehicle that is taking us through this life, which right now, right here, right this moment, it just happens to be this one. If I go through many lives, which hopefully I will, and I have, you know, you will reincarnate in a different body, in a different vehicle. But how much care are we taking of that one that has been given to us at this very moment in our lives? And all those things, when they happen to us, the vomiting, or you know, things when we're not feeling well, where we're not feeling connected, those are signs. Those are signs speaking to us, that we choose to tuck it under the rug and ignore it and say, oh, having constipation is normal. No, it's not. You know, vomiting is normal. Yeah, it may have been that food poisoning, but what can we do better? What can we do to take care of ourselves? So take this chance to think about, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of the mind, the body, and the soul that you've been given in this point in time? What are the things that you're doing to be devoted to yourself? And if you want to type it, feel free to type it in there for us.
Yeah, I was like, what would one like simple, achievable step be towards caring for yourself in a devotional way each day? It might help for you to actually type it in. It just might help like affirm it, you know, and reinforce it. Sharing it just might help make you even more accountable to following through on that.
Yeah, walking every day, meditation. Thank you, Cheryl. Pranayam, yes. Stepping outside my comfort zone, making plans with new friends. Yeah. Meditation, walking nature, get up early in the morning to do morning routine. That's all absolutely beautiful. And Sean is 100% right. Sometimes when we think through things, we can manifest them right? Because now we're putting that intention forward, we're thinking through it. The moment that we write it, it's almost like you're putting that pen into paper, you're like committing to yourself to that devotion. Mindful eating. I need to do that one too, Karen, so you and I will do it together. Quitting screen time, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So hopefully all these conversation for the past 45 minutes, it has brought a sense of intention into your day-to-day life. The whole purpose, the whole meaning behind all of this, it really is, if we are disconnected, it's okay. There is no reason to be mad at yourself. The fact of the matter is you're in this call, you're realizing that you're disconnected. Now is your chance to reconnect with twice, 4 times, 7 times much more love than what you were potentially, connected before. And then taking those things that you talked about and then start making them a reality. They become a reality and they become manifested the moment that we think about it, the moment that we write it, and the moment that we execute upon it. That is how we manifest reality. So you had the chance to reflect, you had the chance to think through this. Sean has been here beautifully holding this amazing space for all of you to think through how do you make your day more intentional and more devotional. Now, we're going to take a few minutes here to go over any questions that you may have. If you're struggling with how to make your devotion into action, if you have anything that you have been thinking about but you have been afraid of doing, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask the questions, post it. We're happy to share this moment with you. And then we're going to take the 5 last minutes of this call where Sean is going to walk us through a beautiful chanting session with him. So intermittent fasting was the last one that I read here from Pam. Let's see.
I have anxiety all the time and weakness, and I don't know, I do meditation also, and then also attend some session online with Dr. But still I have anxiety and weakness. I don't know what to do.
Thank you for sharing that. And would you mind sharing where is the anxiety coming from and where do you feel it in your body? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your heart? Or is it in your stomach? Where are you feeling it?
Mind.
I'm sorry? In your mind? Okay. So it's overthinking. Is that what? Overthinking. Okay. So a couple of practices, and Sean, feel free to jump in here, but a couple of practices that I know for sure can help when the mind is overthinking. That means you're not allowing yourself to sink into the heart. So your mind is driving your everyday life. In the worries and everything that may be happening, that doesn't mean that you need to disconnect completely from it, because then you're going to be disconnecting perhaps from reality. But some things to calm down that anxiety is definitely meditation, finding quiet moments. Now, what I will tell you is, typically this is harder than what it sounds. Like if our mind tends to be thinking all the time and we're looking for that quiet moment, our mind is actually going to get louder before it gets quieter. So what we're going to hear in that moment that we're dedicating and devoting to get quieter, we're going to hear more of that busy mind. We call it the monkey mind. And your mind is going to be jumping from one place to the other, to one worry to the other. And that is the whole purpose and the intention of this, is to calm it down. And some yogis that practice this actually call it the beast. The mind can be the beast, where it's taking full control, but it isn't until our heart takes over that the beast calms down. So my recommendation here for you would be to try meditation, also breath work. Breath work really helps calm down the mind, especially on the exhalation. So with the inhalation, let's say that you count up to 4, and then try to make the exhalation a little bit longer. So you count in very slow, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you get to the top and can pause, and maybe the exhalation count to 6. At the very beginning, you may only be able to do 4 or may only be able to do 5. But the fact that you're able to increase it at some point to 6, you're automatically calming down the nervous system and going from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, where you're all more calm and you're not on the fight or flight. Because your mind is on the fight or flight constantly, it seems like. Any recommendations?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. My response is perhaps to play with integrating more mantra into your practice, so the repetition of a sound. The mantra, even whether it's uttered out loud or in your own mind, repeated over and over, in a pattern with feeling, can, in a sense, like soak up a lot of those restless, stormy, anxious thoughts and allow for us to experience this greater sense of presence. The word mantra itself actually comes from a couple of Sanskrit words whose meaning is to set free the stormy, wild, discursive mind. So it's a practice specifically designed to help us with overthinking. So you could just take a mantra that you feel connected to. We're going to do one in a little bit here, and just repeat it over and over and over, and you can play with uttering it with your full voice in a subtler, quieter, maybe a more whispered tone, and then play with actually internally singing the mantra. And I think it would be interesting for you to experiment with that if you haven't before, for a number of days, and to see if it has an impact.
For sure. Yeah. And thank you for opening up, really. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions here before we go and start our mantra with Sean? If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Going once, going twice. All right, so we're gonna get started here while Sean is getting ready to get set up. I would just love to invite all of you to take this conversation today and bring it down to your heart. If you can, after this, maybe you'll take about 5 to 10 minutes of your day and just dedicate those 5 to 10 minutes to yourself. That's all we're asking for. Take it for yourself, love yourself, even give yourself a hug. You have no idea the powerful, meaningful effect that it has when you love yourself. So with that, we're going to pass it on to Sean. We're going to do our mantra. Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you, Sean.
It's been a joy to be with y'all today. So the mantra we're going to sing is fairly simple. Shri. Want to try it? Shri.
Shri.
Ram.
Ram.
Jai.
Jai.
Ram.
Ram.
Jai.
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 Ram.
Ram.
Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram.
Shira Jai Ram.
Jai Jai Ram Om.
Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram Jai Ram.
Shri Ram Jai Ram.
Jai Jai Ram Om.
Jai Jai Ram.
It's a mantra. It has many interpretations, but just for simplicity, think of it as a balancing mantra. It helps to balance the masculine and feminine energies within us. So I'll sing it. You're welcome to join me. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram We'll do 3 more cycles. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 2 more times. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Last time. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Peace, Shanti, 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 Shanti.
Thank you so much,
Sandy.
Sean.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have an amazing, beautiful week. Big heart to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.